Good morning, everybody. This is Bronwyn from Tarot Fever. Today I wanted to do a VR to this hashtag that's going around, the My Classics, that was started by Dani Mystic. So I went to my bookshelf and I just grabbed a bunch of decks that I feel like kind of tell the story of my tarot journey. So yeah, I've got probably about 10 or 12 here. And I'm just going to go through them briefly and just talk about them a little bit. So I started reading tarot in the early to mid 90s. I think it was probably around 1994 when I was about 15 or 16. So I had at that point the plaid-backed Rider-Waite-Smith. And then eventually I got a second deck. I got the Daughters of the Moon Tarot, which was a really cool circular deck. I know that those decks are in my house somewhere, packed away in a box with my journals from when I was a teenager, and I cannot find them. So unfortunately, I cannot show those, but the plaid-back Rider-Waite-Smith is definitely my classic deck. I just don't have it on hand. Then when I got back into tarot, a few years ago, like I've been into it on and off, but I really got back into it about 5 years ago. So I went to my local bookstore and I got the Golden Universal Tarot because, you know, it's sort of similar to the Rider-Waite-Smith and that's what I was used to, but it had those sort of gold, you know, it's got the gold foil stamped into it, which I thought was really cool. So this is one of the decks that kind of got me back interested in tarot. Now I've trimmed my copy, and somehow I actually did a really good job of it. The edges are pretty even, shockingly. I'm not sure how I got it that even because any deck that I've trimmed since was so uneven that I couldn't riffle shuffle it anymore, so I stopped doing that. These are the backs. I'm just playing. This is just a low Scarabeo deck. But it's really beautiful, in my opinion. I love the gold. I think it looks really good trimmed, too. So that is my first classic deck. Some of the others are newer, and I just picked them based on the idea of, you know, if, say, you ask somebody that lives with me, my kids, my husband, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a Bronwyn deck. You know what I mean? Because they just kind of, I don't know, they speak to me, they speak of me, I guess, because I use them so often and they see them in my hands so much. So that's the first one. Then I kind of branched out a bit and I started getting different decks that are reprints of classics, you know, from the 90s or the 70s. So I have these three here that kind of, to me, are in the same category. I don't know why. There's no official system here. Just sort of in my mind, they're kind of in the same sort of category. So the Morgan Greer, which is very, very 70s. At first, I did not like it because it's not like the Rider-Waite imagery. It was, in my mind, very modern, which is kind of funny since it's very, very vintage or retro. But I have come to absolutely love this deck over time as I realized just how much variation there is in decks that are available to us at this point in time. So yes, this one's very near and dear to my heart. I just love the color, the palette that's used. It's very bright. I love this moon card. So that's the Morgan Greer. That's a US Games. And then the Aquarian, which is also US Games, which is published in 1970. And I think the artwork in this is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of stark, but the Art Nouveau sort of style is just beautiful to me. I don't use this deck a ton, but I do really love looking at it. Like, just look at the details. in the artwork. And I have a really good book called, I think it's called Spiritual Tarot, that goes into detail about the meanings of each card for the Aquarian and the Morgan Greer. And one more deck. I can't think of which one it is off the top of my head because I'm not at home. I don't have the book with me right now, but it's a fantastic book. So these are the backs. This is obviously a reprint. I know the older ones have the full, I love this back. They have the, like, no border, no white border. But I think it's really beautiful. And yeah, if you're in the right mood for it, it's a fantastic reader. And we have the very 70s, or sorry, not 70s. When was this published? The Robin Wood. Maybe it was 1991. Okay, early 90s. I didn't know this existed when I was a teenager, or I would have been all over it. Again, it's just got really nice, I don't know. I like the artwork. I am not an art person. Like, I don't know anything about art really, but I do know that I love this deck. And there's something really warm about it when you read with it. It's like, it really takes you into another world. Yeah, so that's the Robin Wood. And these are all still available. I think only a couple of the decks that I've got here are out of print. And even if they are, you can get a different version of them, I believe. And then we have my good old Albano Weight, which is a Rider-Waite, but like really funky 60s colors. It's a reprint of a deck from the 1960s by Frankie Albano. So you just have this really cool mashup, like, or mix up of the original colors. It's very fun, very bright. I absolutely love this deck. I don't think it gets talked about enough, honestly. It's my favorite Rider-Waite deck. I like it more than the Centennial or any of the vintage or like the reproductions of the original. I love it. Look at the rainbow in Temperance. You get that little splash of purple there on the Hierophant. Just beautiful. But I can see, you know, it wouldn't be to everybody's taste. Look at this 6. But if you're into like 60s colors and that whole vibe, then this is a great deck. And it's not that expensive. Like, you can get it off Amazon if you shop on Amazon. I think it's about 26 Canadian. So it's a great deal in my opinion. It's got nice cardstock. It's that kind of almost plasticky feeling cardstock. Okay, so then we'll fast forward a bit up till about 5 years ago. Like, I got back into tarot and I bought these vintage reprints. And then I discovered the Wild Unknown Tarot, which totally changed my view of the tarot and how it can be done. And I'm sure that a lot of people feel that way, but it really just blew my mind that somebody could take, you know, the basic meanings of the Rider-Waite-Smith and represent them in such a different way. And this deck really changed the way I read and the way I view tarot art. It just basically opened up all the horizons, opened up the horizon, I should say, to all of the beautiful work that has been put out recently by artists. So, yes, the Wild Unknown, definitely one of my classic decks. And then another one that really opened up my eyes about just how different tarot art could be is the Fountain Tarot, which definitely one of my favorites. So these are the beautiful backs. Again, it's kind of a colder deck. It does have more of a balance, in my opinion, of masculine and feminine energy. You get a lot of different ages represented, which is nice. And yeah, along with the Wild Unknown, these two really blew my mind, I guess you could say, to use a 60s term. Yeah, just really a gorgeous, gorgeous tarot deck. And it is a bit more expensive than your typical mass market deck, but the cardstock is really nice. I've had this one for a long time and shuffled it a ton. And well, other than that dog hair, the gilding actually doesn't look bad compared to a lot of decks I've had that are gilded. Like, it's a little bit chipped, but it's not bad at all. It's stood up to a lot of abuse, and I cannot resist shuffling this deck. There is something about the sound of it shuffling that's just, it's wonderful. I'm sure there are other people like me who just can't get enough of shuffling. So that is the Fountain. All right, I'm going to try to go a little bit faster because I don't want this video to be like a million minutes. I was hoping to keep it to about 20 minutes. Okay, then these are my more modern or more recently published decks that I absolutely love. We've got the Dame Darcy. This is the first edition, but I have also got the newer edition that's currently for sale on Etsy. If there's such a thing as a soul deck, this is one of mine. And I did not expect that because the first time I saw it, I wasn't blown away by the artwork, but this deck just works. I love even just sitting and flipping through and looking at the cards. I have a lot of decks like that. This is one where, you know, I know every card, I know every picture, just the same as with the Rider-Waite-Smith. I can see each card in my mind without having the deck in my hands. And yeah, definitely one of my classics. So I've done a few of these sort of like hashtag VR videos, and I'm trying not to re-show all of my favorite decks because there is going to be definitely some overlap between these videos. The Pagan Otherworlds, a classic for sure, for a lot of people, I'm sure. But I had to give it a mention here. It's a stunner. It's the first pip deck, really, that I ever bought and really was able to use, because you do get those little hints of Rider-Waite-Smith imagery in there that help you. Yeah. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous decks. I could sit and flip through each card of each of these decks, but again, I don't want this deck to be taking up a ton of people's time, and I don't want it to take, you know, like a full day to upload, because my upload speed is so bad right now. It's taking me hours to upload like a 10-minute video, which is super strange. Okay, here's another, the Golden Tarot by Cat Black. Another deck that you can get on the mass market. Gold gilding, beautiful backs, all of this collaged artwork from the Renaissance, I believe. But a fantastic take on the Rider-Waite-Smith. One I reach for a lot, especially if I'm doing a reading for somebody I don't really know very well. I feel like it works for everybody with a little bit more of an interesting style of art than the original RWS. Okay, so I'm down to, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 more that I'm going to show. the Shimmering Veil by Conway. Lots of flip-throughs of all of these decks online. If anybody's interested in them, I'm sure you can Google them and find a full review of each of these decks that some other creator on YouTube has made at some point. So this is this is a very deep deck. I use this for shadow work. I use this really for when I'm feeling intense. I get a lot out of just sort of meditating on these images, and the meaning just sort of comes to me as I stare into the picture. I mean, you do have your basic Rider-Waite imagery that's there, but there's so much more of these cards. Like, look at this death card. This is, to me, just the most perfect representation of the wheel. You've got that galaxy. This is an incredible work of art, this deck. Absolutely incredible. I hold it with great reverence, I guess you could say. So yeah, I don't use it lightly. I don't use it a lot, but it is definitely one of my favorites. And at some point I will do a full flip through of it and talk about it because it's so special. Okay, this one, the traditional Manga Tarot, or Manga, still not sure how to pronounce it. Fantastic. It's not an older deck, but I love this deck. I use it all the time. I find, I don't know, there's something about this world that just draws me in. The colors are very beautiful, very interesting color palette. This is just a low scarabeo, like typical tuck box that you can get online. And I haven't seen this one mentioned a whole lot online, but it's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's just, again, I could sit and flip through all of these cards. Look at this Ten of Swords. Isn't that gorgeous? You've got that really bright light. It's like a fire instead of the dawn. Or it could be the dawn, I'm not sure. But however you interpret it, and all these flowers growing out of her. Okay. Moving along. Moving along from the traditional manga. Oh, and these are the backs. And I've obviously edged most of my decks. It's something I do with almost every single one. I cannot help myself. Okay, I got two more. I got one Oracle deck, and I've got one indie deck, which I believe is still available on Etsy. So I'll end with the Oracle, and this is the Wild or Woven Tarot by Greg White. He's a Canadian. I purchased this off Etsy. I believe he is out on the West Coast or in British Columbia somewhere, maybe a bit more inland, not right on the coast. So this deck has this beautiful box with the birch bark print on it, and the backs of the cards are the same. It's a nice, thick, semi-glossy cardstock, I guess. And this deck is so beautiful and so gentle, and it represents all the things I love. Like, I just love animal decks. And I just see so much of Canada in this deck, which obviously appeals to me. Look at this Ace of Wands. And I love how each suit has its own shape. Like the cups is the water droplets. The pentacles, you've got the, like a mountain, you know, the earth. This Hierophant card, I adore this. And the majors all have their own unique shape with the artwork within it. Like, look at how the mouse's eye is a keyhole. And you've got the little lemniscate there. He's, you know, teaching the two other mice. There's the wands. We've got the flame shape. And then for the swords, we have like a cloud. Look at this 6 of Swords. We've got the forest fire. It's just, he is such a talented artist. And I have not seen much about this deck on YouTube, but it is definitely worth a mention. Oh, look at this tower. Yeah, absolutely super special deck. And I haven't had it that long, but it's rapidly climbed up into a classic. I know it will be. You know how you can just tell with some decks, like, you know, they're ones you'll keep forever. And these are all decks that I will keep forever. And then finally, I have my one Oracle deck that is, again, I haven't had it. I've only had it a couple of years, I think, but it is just so perfect. The Roots and Wings Oracle by Kat Riles. It's a very balanced Oracle deck. It's not all sunshine and, you know, positive messages. There is a lot of depth and balance, like I said, duality in this deck. And it has been raved about all over YouTube, so I won't go into great detail about it, as with any of these decks, but it pairs beautifully with almost any tarot deck if you want to use it with a tarot deck or on its own. Love this. All right, so I'm going to give this a shuffle just because it's that really sticky rose petal, but I love it. In this deck, I love it because it's small, bendable. I can shuffle it easily because it's a smaller deck. It's more like between like a poker size and a tarot size. All right, so thank you if you made it this far for listening to me ramble on. This was really fun. I love doing these VRs. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.